First show of Purpose. Another episode of Purpose. Let's get it.
Can I put a new deposit in your memory bank? Remember me for a minute.
So, in light of the H&M sweater, coolest monkey in the jungle, Donald Trump's comments. I was gonna name some, but we could just leave it right there. Like Donald Trump's comments. We live in a time in America where racism is a conversation that's either completely avoided or is used to completely tear someone down. Ecclesiastes chapter 4. If you hear another language in the background, it's my daughter. I don't know what she's saying, but she is talking though. Yeah. So, Ecclesiastes chapter 4, it says, that's not what it says. Again, I observed all the oppression that takes place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed with no one to comfort them. The oppressors have great power and their victims are helpless. I wasn't sure on what to do my first video on, but a recollection of this moment that I had in school inspired this message. I had a white professor, and he told us that the seminary school that he graduated from, he was told not to preach a social gospel. They told him, look, don't talk about social injustices. Don't talk about things that are happening to people that don't directly involve the gospel. A social gospel, meaning that don't talk about the injustices that's happening to people on a social level, because that waters down the gospel. And he was going through seminary at a time where there was a lot of things happening to people of color, black people in particular. So in other words, he was actually being told, don't talk about specifically what's happening to black people. And I find that interesting. It brought me to an important question. I don't know if Christians are asking themselves this, but I don't see how you cannot come across the question. And the question would be, how does God feel about black people in America? You may even be able to stretch the question and say, how does God feel about people of color all around the world? I wish I could answer that question. I do know this. All things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. I had a conversation with one of my friends, and he told me that some people out of the Southern Baptist Convention came out and actually apologized for slavery. Not sure if an apology will reconcile everything, but they came out and they actually exposed themselves by saying, hey, we know that those people that was actually Baptist preachers who enslave people. We know that we treated black people wrong, and we apologize for it. For me, that's huge. It's big of them to actually come out and admit it, because what's happening is there are white people inside the church who are not admitting that it happened at all, and then there's black people inside the church who are moving outside the church because they don't see the white people inside the church talking about it. And when I say white people inside the church, I'm not necessarily talking about the congregants. I'm talking about the evangelicals. I'm talking about the people that are pastors, you know. They're coming out and they're not coming out and saying anything about the stuff that's happening to black people. When homosexuality started to take on a social construct, they marched. So, you want to get in the video? Is that why you came up here? She wanted to shine for a second. I'm gonna let her shine. Okay, so I think it's odd for them to kind of say, hey, look, we can march for this, but we won't even talk about what's happening to blacks. And that's pushed black people away from the church. So I'm really doing this to put some ideals on some of the young black Christians to help them to be able to keep on navigating their way through this tension that's going on in America right now without losing their faith. And here's one thing. One thing is to always remember that Christianity wasn't a Western construct. That it did not start over here in the West. It did not start with Europeans. You know what I mean? It started in the Middle East. It's pretty obvious about that. History will actually tell you that Mark started one of the first churches, and he did that in Ethiopia. So it did not start over here in the West. Another thing would be to remember that God sees oppression. God sees and cares about oppression. I believe that God is the God of justice. And in saying that, I believe that He wants you to speak out about the injustices that are going on. But within that fight, it has to be done with faith. And not only faith, but overall reconciliation. And I don't know what reconciliation is going to look like in America, honestly. There's my ideals that I agree with that's been started by black leaders who aren't Christian that said some things that made me think. But I can't fully follow any movement that's started by anyone who doesn't believe in the God of reconciliation. And that's because I believe that the oppression that has started their movement is the same thing that the movement will fall on. It springs from oppression and it's going to fall on oppression. And where do we get in all that? Where do we get? We got to deal with the opposite race. It's always been that way, and it always will be that way. No matter where we go, no matter what we do, we have to deal with people that's not our skin color. And we have to deal with people that do things to us that we don't agree with. Even if it's not happening directly, there's going to be for the rest of our lives. So we have to figure out how to live with reconciliation in our hearts. Love people who hate you the way that you love yourself. And look, love is a feeling, right? You're not going to literally love people who hate you. You're not going to feel it, I should say. But you do it in your actions. On Martin Luther King's birthday, his daughter was being interviewed by Isaiah Thomas, the basketball player. And one of the things she said was, one of the things people miss about my father's birthday is his whole movement was derived around loving people who hate you. This was a big part of what she wanted people to understand about her dad. And look, I get what's going on right now, right? This is probably going through your head right now as you're listening to me talk. Here comes another black Christian simply talking about forgiveness. And granted, you've heard it before. I know. But let me say this. To the believers. If forgiveness isn't the key, well, maybe I should say, if forgiveness is the key to unlock the gates of heaven for you, then why wouldn't it be the key to unlock everything heaven has for you here on earth?
A revolution. It's what the whole world feels when a brain as sharp as a needle that's full of truth takes a shot in a vein that's filled with blood that hasn't been spilled for pain. And the sickness remains. The only thing that you see is what makes the world ill. And you feel shell shot like you on a battlefield full of bullets and ills. Cause they showed you a wheel of fortune, but every time you spin the wheel, it never reels in the real. It's no game show, dealing no deal no more. Getting high and drunk, so it's easier to believe the lies. We sober, no more waiting for change to happen right before our eyes. It's over, it's time to revolutionize the culture, the culture, the culture.